Hey everyone, I'm Nicole Guillaume with Guiding Echoes, the channel that is devoted to your spiritual and personal growth. And in this video, we are talking about how you can protect yourself from energy vampires. Now, in essence, energy vampires are extremely toxic people who just drain the life out of you, right? After a few interactions with them, you're just like, God, can somebody just please save me? I need CPR. I feel like I just want to die. You know, they're pretty terrible people most of the time. And they come in different shapes and sizes and different forms. You know, sometimes they're extremely manic and happy, but they're the type of people that are constantly dragging you along with them into their bad decisions. They're the ones who are careless and reckless and they want company. And then on the flip side, you have the ones who are more downtrodden and depressed, and they're just always complaining about how terrible life is. And when they have these amazing opportunities for themselves, they sabotage themselves and then complain about it. And that's just as frustrating. And then there's the other type of energy vampire, which is more of the narcissist. And this is the person who verbally beats you down with their words. They're rarely ever saying anything nice. They're always putting you down. They call you names. They will demand a lot of attention from you, but they don't really give anything back into the relationship. So if you've ever found yourself in one of these situations, you might be asking yourself, how the heck did I get into this? What the hell is going on? And how do I prevent this in the future? And those are all wonderful questions, so let's answer them. So the very first thing you need to do to protect yourself from energy vampires is to figure out what healthy people act like. I know you probably thought I was going to say you need to set boundaries, huh? But no, I believe that if you really want to avoid toxic people, energy vampires, you have to have a clear idea, not of what they look like, but what healthy people look like. Because here's the thing, energy vampires, like I said, they come in different shapes and sizes. They have different personality traits. They have all of these different ways of just draining you. And it's really easy for us to just focus on one aspect of this. So if I were to ask you, what does an energy vampire look like? Chances are you've had a pattern with a particular type of energy vampire. And this can go back to childhood trauma. You may realize that you have been accidentally becoming very close friends with people who have identical personalities to your narcissistic mom. You know, there's some type of pattern there. And if you're able to find that pattern, that's great because you can break it. But you might just dive right into the pattern of a different energy vampire. So, to prevent that, ask yourself, what does a healthy person act like? And I don't necessarily mean someone who's physically healthy. I mean someone who's emotionally and mentally healthy. Now, for the past few years, I myself have been attracting energy vampires left and right. And I was able to find that pattern too, but I wasn't necessarily able to fix it. And this last year was when I finally started asking myself, what do healthy people act like? How do they behave? Where do they hang out? What are their priorities? What are their characteristics? And as I began to dive into this, the characteristics of healthy people began to reveal themselves. And another magical thing happened. I started to meet more healthy people. And I realized that I love being around them. So healthy people, in my perspective, are ambitious. They're the go-getters. They are disciplined. They know what they want in life. They go after it without stepping on anyone else's toes. They can be generous. They have clear boundaries. They know what their priorities are in life and they stick to them. They can be outspoken but kind at the same time. They are compassionate. They're not always kind, which may seem counterintuitive, but by not always kind, they know how to be protective. You know, they know when to show their teeth, and so a part of them has made friends with their shadow side, but what's great about them is they're not going to take it out on you. And that's what energy vampires do, some of them anyway. If they're upset, if they're the passive-aggressive type, they're going to take that out on you. Healthy people don't do that. They don't need to. They've made friends with their shadow side. They've learned how to integrate that ugly part of them into themselves, and they've given it an appropriate outlet. So there are healthy people out there, but in order to recognize them, you have to know what they look like. So ask yourself that. what do healthy people look like? Where can I meet them? How can I become friends with them? And what part of myself do I need to fix so that I can fit in to that crowd? My second tip for you is to know what your standards are. And if you have done this first exercise of identifying what a healthy person looks like, then number 2 on this list is going to be really easy. So setting the standards. So the standards might be that in your friendships and relationships, you need people in your life who respect your time, who are honest, who have integrity, who are able to balance out their negative side with their positive side. So by setting the standards, what you're initially doing is you are setting boundaries, and you're saying, these are the things I will allow in my life, and these are the things that I absolutely won't allow in my life, or I'm going to have to pay attention to and figure out if that is something I can work with. Because the reality is that while there are wonderful, healthy people in this world, we all have issues, right? And a sign of a healthy person is someone who has their issues, is aware of them, and is working through them. The difference between that and an energy vampire is that an energy vampire might put the responsibility of fixing their lives on you, so they want you to fix everything going on in their life, or they take it out on you, where, like we said, there's that verbal abuse. That's the narcissistic personality disorder. That is also an energy vampire. So that's what you want to be mindful of. So you start setting your standards, and that helps you to set the boundaries. And then the third tip I have for you is that it's not enough to set the boundaries. You have to make sure that you follow them. Because here's what people do. They set the boundary, right? They say, this is the line that is not to be crossed. And someone crosses it, and you're like, okay, well, maybe that's not that bad. We're going to go ahead and move the boundary line back a little bit, but this is where you don't cross. This right here, do not cross it. And they cross that again, and then what do? You keep making adjustments for it. So stop it. Stop making adjustments for it. You need to speak your boundaries out loud. So the third step really is calling people out when they're overstepping. So for example, if you have an energy vampire that is calling you every single day to share their sad, sad story with you, but they're not taking the appropriate steps to make their life better, or they're trying to ask you for help all the time, they're wanting to borrow money, or they're asking you for advice that they never take, or whatever the case is, obviously this is someone who's very draining. And if this is someone who is indeed going through a hard time, you may not want to abandon them. Nobody wants to abandon someone in their hour of need. But what you can do is set limits with how much you're interacting with them. And if this person becomes too needy, or too desperate, or too vile, or too ugly, you need to speak up and say, look, I am happy to be your friend. I want to be your friend. I want to be here for you, but I have my own things going on too. And while I want to be here for you, I have to make my life and the people in it a priority. So this is what needs to happen. I'm happy to talk to you once a week. I'm happy to talk to you on this day, whatever it is. But start thinking about how you can create that boundary. Now, when you set boundaries with an energy vampire, they typically don't like it, especially if the two of you have already created some type of a dance or some type of a routine. And once you start to put the boundaries in place, what the energy vampire will typically do is they will detach themselves from you, and they'll go feed somewhere else. And I recently had this happen where I had a friend that I was pretty close to, and because of some things that I was going through in my own life, I realized I needed to take a big step back from her, and really from other people. I just went through this week where I decided to cut everyone off, not permanently, but just for a while, because I need to figure things out. I wanted to rework some things in my life. I was trying to create a different structure. I was trying to figure out what was going to work for me. I just needed a week off from everybody. So this was my solitude week, which is a really strange thing for me to do because I'm an extrovert. But anyways, so I took this week off from everybody, and this person in my life could not handle it. She felt rejected, she felt abandoned, she thought I was mad at her, her imagination came up with all these different ideas. And I understand the rejection and abandonment aspect. I understand why she felt that, because like I said, we had talked every day. But then I needed a break from everyone in my life for this period of time so I could just figure things out. I even was not even active on Facebook, which is huge because I was a social media addict. I'm not on Facebook that much anymore. So I just completely shut out the world for a while in a very healthy way so I could get clear about my life's goals and directions and what steps I needed to take next, what type of disciplines I had to put into play. I was creating a plan. And I wanted to make sure that I had no outside influence while I was doing this because I needed to get centered in myself and figure out where I needed to be and really what changes I needed to make in my life and what sat good with me. And you know how it is when you're around your friends and your family and you start asking them for advice on things, or you don't even ask them for advice on your things, you just tell them what you're going through. Of course they're going to give you feedback. You know, that's what they do, and that's awesome, that's wonderful, and it has its place. But for me, I needed a week off from everybody. So that's what I did. And my friend couldn't handle it. And so this was a very odd boundary. She'd known me for about 3 years. So we had, and I think we were talking every day for about 2 years. So when I just kind of set this boundary and I said, look, I'm not talking to anybody this week. I'm just getting centered. I'm focusing on me. She couldn't handle it. And she ended up unfriending me. She sent me a message saying, like, if you had a problem with me, you should have told me. And I wrote back, I'm like, I don't have a problem with you. This is just something I'm going through and something I need to do. So anyways, like I said, she unfriended me. And I haven't heard from her since. And I'm not saying she was an energy vampire. She wasn't. But that is something that is typical of energy vampires. So when you set a standard, when you set a boundary, or when you say, hey, I need to pull back for a while because I have all this stuff going on, energy vampires typically cannot handle that. So they will pull you out completely. They pull away from you completely so they can go feed somewhere else. And before you know it, you're just sitting there like thinking, well, gosh, was I worth anything to you? Like, was that all you needed me for? Was, you know, energy to feed off of? And what's interesting is when I had this experience with my friend, I thought back to when this has happened with other people, because that is also a very clear pattern too, which is I give a lot of time to people, and then when I have to pull back, they think something's wrong, they get upset, and they just leave, they'll unfriend me, or, you know, whatever. And so what I've learned with that is maybe I need to not spend so much of my time, pouring my time and energy and effort into people. Maybe I need to manage that a little bit more. And instead of having friends that I talk to every day, maybe it's better if I have friends that I talk to only once a week or twice a week, or who knows, so that if I do need to take that type of space again, they're not seeing it as something overtly negative. You know, so I'm sharing this with you just so you can see how I kind of unraveled the pattern, how I started analyzing things, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. You know, look at your most current relationship with your energy vampire, whether it's something that's already existent or, you know, a relationship that you had. And when I say relationship, it's not necessarily romantic. It can be a friendship, coworker, whatever. Think back to the last time you had that type of relationship. Think back to your last interactions with an energy vampire. And then see if that's happened with the previous energy vampire, and then a previous, and a previous, and a previous, and go down the line and find the pattern, because I'm telling you, there's gonna be one. And if you can figure out how you contributed to it, then you can also figure out what action you can take and what boundaries you need to take to prevent that from happening in the future. Of course, the flip side to this is that you will make whole new mistakes, and that's okay, because you'll learn from those too. But if you set the boundaries down right, and if you figure out how to move forward from here, it's going to get a lot easier. So out of all of the things that we talked about today, I really believe that number one is the most important. And it's why I started the video off with that, because, you know, some people don't watch all the way to here. And if you have, good job. Thanks for sticking around. But I do believe that's the most important aspect in finding healthy people and finding good friendships and finding good, you know, partners. If you're single and you're looking for somebody, that is so important to ask yourself, what do healthy people act like? And once you're able to figure that out, you can make a decision in your life that, hey, these are the only type of people that I'm going to interact with, or maybe not interact with, but these are the only type of people I'll allow into my inner circle. Because these are the people that are healthy and happy and play at my speed. And I know that they're not going to use me and drag me down. And when you're around people who can lift you up and encourage you and inspire you, and you're able to do the same for them, there is no end to the magic that you can create in your life. Who we hang out with, who we spend our time and energy with, does dictate the course of our future. They will either make us or break us, so choose your relationships wisely. I hope that you have found this video helpful, and if you have, please give it a thumb up. And if there is a story that you'd like to share with us regarding your encounter with an energy vampire, or maybe a pattern that you determined, or maybe you have advice on how to set proper boundaries for energy vampires, put those in the comments section down below. I would love to hear from you, and I know other people in this community are reading the comments too, and so your advice and your feedback can be helpful to someone else who's going through this similar situation. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, I would like to welcome you to the Guiding Echoes community, and I'd also like to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here on this channel, we love to talk about spiritual and self-help topics. We talk about things like consciousness, angels, energy vampires. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure that you hit subscribe and hit that little bell notification so you can be notified when I release new videos in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Oh, my hair's frizzy. Frizzy. And have you ever asked yourself, all right, here we go. Already having verbal typos, kitty. All right. Lately, and for me, oh, oops. See, again, no feedback. Okay, I think I want to start over. Yeah, we're gonna start over. And my hair looks awful, cat. Why didn't you say anything, kitty? Okay. My cat, my assistant, he's just laying on the bed, eyes closed, not helping me with any of this. Put a roof over his head, clean his kitty litter box. This is the things I get. Nothing. Maybe he's an energy vampire. Maybe.